All right, we're back at Capital One Arena here in Washington, D.C., reporting on and celebrating Donald Trump's historic inauguration. We're going to bring in Art Laffer, former Reagan economist, and Steve Moore, host of More Money on WABC Radio. And both of those guys somehow together put a book out called The Trump Economic Miracle or something like that. Gentlemen, thank you for doing this. Let me get your... I'm not actually seeing you. I was hoping we get to... There they are. Okay, now they're up on the screen. All right, Art Laffer, what do you think about the inauguration speech? What do you think about Inauguration Day?
I think it's the greatest day for America in a long, long time, Larry. I mean, it reminds me so much of 1981, the cold, the thing. It's a Reagan-esque moment, and Trump is doing a beautiful job. As I have argued, he's the best single president in his first term on economics ever. And I think he's got a real shot at transforming America for a long, long time into the future, just the way Reagan did.
Steve Moore, what stood out in his inaugural speech as far as you're concerned?
Well, Larry, you and I both were not huge fans of Trump's inauguration speech in 2016. It was a little dark. This was exactly the opposite. It was a morning in America. It was aspirational. I love the idea of shooting for the moon, kind of literally, I should say shooting for Mars, right? Figuratively and literally. I thought it was an inclusive speech. He talked about blacks. He talked about Latinos. He talked about all these groups, young people. By the way, Larry, have you seen his poll numbers with young people? Is amazing. Young people see him as the bridge to the future, which is amazing for a guy who's as old as he is. So I loved the speech. I thought it was one of the best inauguration speeches. I go back to 1984. I think one of the best ever.
You know, Steve Moore, I thought you'd jump for joy because Mr. Trump had a section in there about cutting federal spending. I know that you worry a lot and obsess about federal spending. The only thing there that you would have liked better was the debt ceiling. But he did talk about cutting government spending. Well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, look, the only thing, it was really a powerful speech. I really believe that. And I think it's interesting, Larry, 4 years ago, we heard Joe Biden give his speech, and it was all about uniting the country. But then Joe Biden went into office, and I can't think of a single thing he did in 4 years that united the country. I think growth is uniting, prosperity is uniting, inclusion is uniting. So I think I'm excited. I'm a little worried about the tariffs, but other than that, I like the agenda.
Well, that was my next question, Art Laffer. He didn't go into details. I mean, there's going to be plenty of time for discussion of details. But he did mention tariffs several times, and he did mention a new tariff collecting revenue, an external revenue collection agency. I don't know how you think about that. And at the same time, Art, he did not mention tax cuts. And I was somewhat surprised and disappointed that he didn't have a spot for tax cuts today.
But both of your points are correct, Larry. I mean, they are. But, Trump is a doer, not a talker in this. I mean, he's a great talker, but what he does is amazing. And all the talk he does on tariffs, we have to go back to his first term when he had, I think, 6 major bills, USMCA, we had the South Korea, we had the Japan, we had the Brazilian and the Colombian agreements there. All of them reduced barriers, reduced tariffs, reduced taxes, were pro-growth policies. I'm expecting Donald Trump to be pro-growth across the board and really create a new prosperity in this country. And, I also think that he's going to want to cut taxes. I think he'd love to get that corporate rate down to 15% and taxes on overtime, get rid of it. I mean, these are all great ideas. And it's really the House has to do the legislation. But I think he's going to do something really great on that line. I'm sure you agree, don't you?
Well, the influential Congressman Byron Donalds, who was here at the top of the show, said that he believed the extension of the tax cuts is absolutely a done deal and that the House will get that through right away, which I think is terrific. I mean, one big, beautiful bill seems to be what the House of Representatives wants, and I think extending the tax cuts will be part of that. There may be time later for Trump to taxes 2.0, but I think right off the top is going to be extending the tax cuts.
And that's what it should be, Larry. That's what it should be.
So the other thing, by the way, please tell Arthur to stop waving his hand in front of my face. We're practically sitting on each other.
I'm trying to keep the audience. I'm trying to keep the audience from getting sick, Larry. That's why I do it.
But anyway, so we're at this conference party this afternoon that we both attended, and it was a bunch of the people from the energy industry, Larry. And I got to tell you, they are amazingly upbeat. They are so bullish about America's energy future. And Trump talked a lot about that. I think that's going to be one of the greatest things. Use our oil, use our gas, use our coal, use our nuclear power, everything we got.
Well, I think, you two are terrific together. It's a lovely couple. I think, though, a good part of his inaugural speech, and this is very important, was rolling back the Biden climate regulations and rolling back the EV regulations and rolling back all of the Green New Deal and rolling back the spending that went on with the Green New Deal. That was a huge part of the speech today, and that has to be music to your ears. Both of you guys are. Arthur, go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me just say that it's music to my ears totally and completely, but also contrast that with the last few minutes of Biden's presidency when he pardoned everyone on earth. What would happen, Larry, if he pardoned literally every American for every crime for the next century? Is that possible? What would be the Supreme Court adjudication on that one? I mean, no one could ever be convicted of a crime ever again. I don't know what this guy's doing and all that versus Trump's really upbeat looking at the future. The juxtaposition is so perfect. I'm so glad Biden's gone, and I'm so glad Trump's here.
Well, look, I mean, we just had the great Miranda Devine here talking about,
Biden
corruption is just off. Biden corruption is off the charts, and what he did today with only 20 minutes left in his entire presidential term, pardoning his family members, was just pure insanity. It shows, though, how corrupt, how guilty, and how divisive he was. But he's not going to steal the thunder from Donald Trump's day today. I mean, Steve Moore, this was a historic inauguration. 4 years ago, very few people thought this could happen. Here it happened with almost a virtual landslide. I mean, it's really quite remarkable.
Yeah, when you think about where he was 3 years ago, the odds were probably 1 in 20 that he would ever return to the White House. But, you and I have learned, and Arthur, from the time we started working with him back in 2016, remember, people said he was a 1 in 10 chance of winning the White House, and he's done it now twice. It really is remarkable. Anybody who bets against this man is making a big, big mistake.
Well, I'm looking forward to a 15% corporate tax rate and a 15% capital gains tax rate. Art Laffer, great to see you. Steve Moore, thanks very, very much.
Thank you, Larry.